In 2021, a tech billionaire walked into a boardroom meeting with his fiercest competitor. 20 minutes later, he walked out without signing anything, without making threats, without raising his voice even once. He asked exactly one question. 4 months later, that competitor's company had completely collapsed, stock worthless, leadership fired, brand dead. And here's the disturbing part. Nobody outside that room could figure out what actually happened. Because what you're about to discover isn't taught in business schools, doesn't appear in leadership books, and most people go their entire lives without recognizing when they're being destroyed by this technique. Watch until the end, you will be surprised. There's an invisible layer of power operating on a frequency 99% of people never detect. It's not charisma. It's not traditional influence. It's not networking. It's something far older, far more surgical, and terrifyingly effective. It's the art of making your opponent self-destruct while believing they're making rational decisions. Masters of this technique don't convince you of anything. They simply create the psychological environment where you arrive at their desired conclusion on your own. Think about it. That executive who never participates in heated debates, but somehow always gets what they want. The dealmaker who closes billion-dollar contracts by asking fewer questions than anyone else in the room. The political strategist who destroys opponents without ever attacking them directly. They don't have superpowers. They have method. And their method is so counterintuitive it looks like magic. The less force you display, the more control you actually wield. There's a phrase that circulates in corporate intelligence circles. If you need to raise your voice, you lost control 5 minutes ago, because shouting is desperation. Threatening is weakness disguised as strength. Arguing aggressively is admitting you didn't map the emotional vulnerabilities of your opponent. Those who master real power operate differently. They use strategic silence as a psychological scalpel, seemingly innocent questions as cognitive traps, and emotional absence as a vacuum that extracts privileged information. And here's the detail almost nobody notices. This technique doesn't require years of training. It requires 3 fundamental shifts in how you interact. Ancient warriors called it winning before the battle begins. Ensis investigators call it letting the suspect hang themselves with their own rope. Modern strategists call it decision engineering. But the principle has remained the same forever. Whoever controls the perception of reality controls reality itself. Now here's the part that's going to disturb you. You've already been manipulated by this technique at least 3 times this week, and you didn't notice. Because that's exactly how it was designed, to be invisible until it's too late. Do you really think your last major decisions were 100% yours? Because what comes next will reveal exactly how to identify when they're playing this game on you. And worse, why you let it happen. Why the quietest person in the room always wins. There's a leaked memo from a Silicon Valley giant, I won't name which one because they aggressively suppress this information, that reveals how their top negotiator closed a $40 billion acquisition. He spoke for a total of 7 minutes during a 4-hour meeting. 7 minutes. The rest of the time? Stone cold silence. Just listening, observing, and every time the other side spoke, they revealed another weakness, another pressure point, another timeline constraint. By the time the meeting ended, he knew their absolute bottom line, their internal conflicts, and exactly which executive was desperate to close the deal. He never asked a single direct question. He just waited. This isn't luck. This isn't experience. This is weaponized psychological vacuum. It works because the human brain interprets silence as social judgment. When someone doesn't react, you automatically assume you need to prove your point. So you talk more, reveal more, expose more vulnerabilities, and every additional word is a rope you're tying around your own neck. There's a classic interrogation technique that migrated into the corporate world. Trained investigators can extract full confessions from suspects using only 3 tools: prolonged silence, neutral expression, and one open-ended question at the exact moment of maximum discomfort. There's no coercion, no visible pressure, just carefully calibrated psychological tension. And it works in 80% of cases because the human impulse to fill uncomfortable silences is stronger than logic. Now translate that to meetings, negotiations, strategic conversations. While everyone's trying to prove they're the smartest person in the room, whoever actually holds power is simply observing, cataloging who gets nervous when, noticing who breaks eye contact when discussing numbers, identifying who compensates for insecurity with verbal aggression. They're building a complete psychological map while you think you're impressing them. And here's the dark trick. Once they map your emotional triggers, you become predictable. And predictability in power games is a death sentence. Because when someone knows exactly how you'll react to a specific stimulus, they can position that stimulus strategically and make you dance to their music while you think you chose the choreography. There are CEOs who close billion-dollar mergers just by waiting for the other side to reveal their deadline. Political operatives who destroy rivals simply by letting them talk too much in public. Negotiators who win contracts because they identify the person across the table has a terror of appearing indecisive. So they create scenarios where any hesitation looks like weakness. Now tell me, how many times have you talked too much trying to fill an uncomfortable silence? Because what comes next is even more disturbing, and explains why some people always seem 3 steps ahead. The facial recognition software reading your fear. There's a venture capitalist in New York, won't say the name. They've sued people for less who has a technique so unethical it borders on psychological warfare. In pitch meetings, they use facial recognition software running on a hidden tablet to track micro-expressions in real time. Fear registers as a 0.3-second eyebrow twitch. Lying shows as asymmetric mouth movement. Desperation appears as increased blinking rate. And they're watching all of it while you think you're just having a conversation. By the time you leave, they have a complete emotional profile, and they know exactly which pressure points to exploit in negotiations. Legal? Barely. Ethical? Absolutely not. Common? More than you think. Because in high-stakes games where billions are on the table, nobody's playing fair. They're playing to win. And winning means having information asymmetry so extreme, it's practically cheating. But here's what's truly disturbing. You don't even need software to do this. Trained observers can read you just as accurately with the naked eye. Intelligence operatives who transitioned into corporate consulting. Professional poker players who became negotiation coaches. Behavioral psychologists who work for hedge funds. They've spent thousands of hours learning to detect patterns. Most people don't even know they're broadcasting. Your body is betraying you constantly. Micro-expressions lasting 0.2 seconds. Posture adjustments when you hear something uncomfortable. Voice tone that shifts imperceptibly when you're bluffing. And there are people trained to catch every single signal. And they're using that information to engineer your decisions without you ever knowing. There's a specific technique called reverse mirroring that's so dark, it's banned in some government negotiation protocols. Instead of mirroring someone's body language to create rapport, you mirror their tension. If they cross their arms nervously, you cross yours too, but calmly. If they speed up their speech, you slow down even more. What does this do? It amplifies their insecurity while projecting your absolute control. It's psychological, brutal, and works so well it was banned from official interrogations. But in the corporate world, in venture capital, in private negotiations, nobody's watching. And these techniques get used every single day. Awareness. Answer honestly. Has someone ever made you feel completely uncomfortable without saying a single word? If this video is making you rethink every major meeting you've ever had, hit that like button and subscribe, because the ending is going to be the most disturbing part of all. There's one final secret about silent control that's so powerful that once you understand it, you can never be manipulated again. How to become unreadable in a transparent world. In 2018, a former Mossad interrogator gave a closed-door talk to Fortune 100 CEOs. What he revealed leaked afterward and caused such impact that several companies banned their executives from sharing the slides. The secret? He taught how to become emotionally illegible in high-pressure situations. And the technique is so counterintuitive that when you first hear it, it seems impossible. You don't control your emotions. You acknowledge they exist and consciously choose not to react. Sounds like cheap self-help philosophy, but when applied in real negotiations, it's devastating. Because all psychological manipulation depends on you reacting predictably to stimuli. Fear generates hesitation. Anger generates mistakes. Anxiety generates concessions. But what if you simply don't react? What if you observe the emotion happening inside you as if you were watching from outside, recognize it exists, and still maintain neutral expression without changing absolutely anything in your behavior? This isn't emotional repression. This is emotional sovereignty. And it's the difference between those who get played and those who play. Ancient warriors trained this for centuries, the ability to feel fear in battle and still maintain posture. Modern strategists call it tactical emotional decoupling, but the principle is the same. When you can't be read, you can't be controlled. And here's the final part that changes everything. Once you master this, you start seeing the game happening in real time. You see when someone tries to create artificial pressure. You see when they use silence as a weapon. You see when they ask questions to destabilize you. And you can simply not engage. You can watch the manipulation attempt happen, smile internally, and respond in a completely unexpected way because you broke your own pattern. There's a tech founder who became legendary for never reacting to provocations in board meetings. Investors tried pressuring him with ultimatums. Competitors tried destabilizing him with public attacks. Nothing worked. He simply processed the information, waited 3 seconds, and responded with absolute calm. Result? Within 5 years, he destroyed every competitor, not because he was more aggressive, but because he was unpredictable. And unpredictability generates fear. And fear generates mistakes. Liberation. Final question. Are you ready to play at a level where nobody can control you anymore? If this video completely changed your view on power and control, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who urgently needs to see it. Because the next video will reveal the exact question that Billionaire used to destroy his competitor, and you'll want to memorize every word.